Hi, and welcome to episode 236 of Level Up, 60 minutes of live Q&A where your questions drive the show. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find out a lot more about what we do in our channel, so please give this video a like and subscribe if you want to find out a bit more about us. So Blanche is over in the social chat today, so please let her know the name of the city you are, where you're watching from, and your name, of course. And we'll give you guys a shout out on social a bit later on. She will also post up a link for you to vote up questions that you would most like answered, and of course for you to add your own. If your question is selected, your name is going to appear in the credits at the end of the show, so stay on and watch that see that happen. So there's a great quote by John F. Kennedy that I really like, and it says, "Change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past or present are certain to miss the future." Successful change happens best when inspired, committed change managers are on board. To successfully develop as a change manager in 2024, you need to begin by building a strong foundation in organizational behavior and a deep understanding of change management methodologies and project management methodologies and principles. Practical experience is going to be critical as well. You can get that by actively participating in change initiatives within your organization or seeking out relevant projects. Now, to help us figure out how to develop our careers as a change manager this year, we have a great panel, so let's jump right in and meet them. Welcome, everybody. Should be a great show today. There's lots and lots of people online watching us already, but I'd like to go through and introduce each panelist, if you don't mind. So I'd like to start with Melissa. She's the founder and chief office fairy, as she described herself, at HappyFactory. With over 15 years experience in the people game, she's now a people strategist and agile change management professional. She consults on all kinds of people problems and loves creating bespoke people programs. Welcome, Melissa.
Thanks, Nigel. It's great to be here. I'm super excited about this discussion today.
Fantastic. Excellent. Sarah Hills is the owner of Carpe, Omnia Training and CUPE International and specializes in providing project and change management training. And she's dedicated her time to both managing the business and delivering training with a primary focus on change management. And that in itself is quite an achievement. So welcome, Sarah.
Thank you very much. Great to be here as always. And change management is something that is just so satisfying to be part of.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Avishek Biswas is a business change and transformation specialist with over 22 years of experience and over £400 million plus of change benefits delivered to date for insurance, banking, fintech, consulting, and clients across various diverse working cultures and countries. Welcome, Avishek.
Thank you very much. It's a bit surprising. I hadn't even heard of the term change management until about 8 years ago. And when I did see someone do that, and I was wondering, this is what people actually get paid for? You must be kidding me. And here I am 8 years since. Great to be here with everyone. Thank you.
Fantastic. It's great to have you here as well. Thanks for joining. Mark Rozner has over 4 decades of leadership experience in highly visible and complex healthcare, financial services, and corporate support organizations. He founded Sunrise Path LLC in 2018, which is really a continuation of his passion for transforming how healthcare is delivered and shaping the craft of project management. So welcome, Mark.
Thanks. It's great to be back again, Nigel, and just to be surrounded by such luminaries. I'm just looking forward to a really great conversation today.
Fantastic. So, man, I'm sure it promises to be a really good one as well. And our final guest for today is Ron Leeman. Ron is a trainer and a trusted advisor who describes himself as your chauffeur on the highway of change. Okay? Working with clients around the world from his base in Thailand, Ron is a pragmatic change professional, and I have to agree with that. Welcome, Ron.
Hello again, in the words of Lionel Richie. Hello, is it me you're looking for? That's it.
And that's it for today. Okay, fantastic. Now, no show would be complete without a question master, and our seasoned question master is the only way I can describe her today, Charlotte. Welcome, Charlotte.
Hi, Nigel, and welcome to today's show for one of my most favorite topics.
I agree. This is also one of my most favorite topics. So just a shout out to the audience, please, everybody, pop your name in the chat where you're watching from. Get involved. If you want to ask questions, just pop them into the LinkedIn or YouTube chat and we'll get them over to the panel to answer live during the show. So I think without further ado, Charlotte, why don't we kick off with our first question?
Thanks, Nigel. Our first question is from one of our regular viewers, Alona. Alona asks, which competency is number one that every change manager should develop?
Which competency is number one? Wow. Okay. So I think we've got quite a few different hands up here to watch this. So I think almost everybody has their hand up at this point in time. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to start with Sarah and then go to Avishek.
Okay, I mean, obviously listening comes about down to competency, but actually I think the thing that you should develop is how to engage with people, because I can honestly say that being a change manager is all about knowing and having the right people trusting you to do the things that you're going to need to do to be able to make that change work. So being able to engage with people and knowing how to do that. And now I'll pass over to one of the other panelists. Excellent, fantastic.
Avishek, what are your thoughts?
Sarah, you might be a mind reader because I was going to say the exact same thing. If you're not empathetic with people, if you cannot relate to people and look at things from their perspectives, you're probably in the wrong profession. That's what I would say.
You're so right, Avishek. I love that description. You're definitely in the wrong profession if you can't relate to people and have no empathy for them. That is so true. Ron, what would you like to add?
People, yes, I totally agree with people, but the specialism I think you need to develop, and we are talking about developing as a change manager. It's not just one thing actually. It's probably three different things. It's psychology and neuroscience. These are things that make people tick. And these are the things that you have to get to understand how people react to certain situations. And the other one is the thing that's going to change everything is artificial intelligence. So if you're going to develop as a change manager, those are probably the three areas that I would suggest you start looking into.
Yeah. That's actually a very, very good point. And, I think the neuroscience element is an interesting one, right? That seems to be coming more to the forefront of change management as people are trying to understand how to relate to other people, right? In this, absolutely. So, Melissa, what are your thoughts?
I agree with everything that everyone has said. So if you are not interested in people, this is the right job for you. But I'd like to add one more thing to it, and that is creativity in relation to people. I find more and more with working in a multicultural global society now, we are having to be a little bit more creative with how we come up with people plans, people programs, initiatives. And so I would add on that creativity is a really important competency in 2024.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. I totally agree with you there. Mark, final thoughts on this?
No, all the thunder has been stolen. I think I'll just reiterate, going and combining both the empathy and the neuroscience. One of the things that I find myself tapping into is self-awareness. Because when I'm, whether I'm facilitating a meeting, I'm working with a stakeholder, whatever it is, I'm always checking them, but I'm also checking me simultaneously. So it's that self-awareness that I would put on top of all the wonderful things that everyone said.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. Self-awareness, I think with if you aren't self-aware, how can you possibly have empathy and be aware of what others want? Right? To truly communicate properly and truly listen to what other folks are saying, I think it's really, really important that you develop your empathetic skills, okay, and develop self-awareness. More importantly, learn to listen as well, because that's an important one too, right? You really do need to learn to listen. If we were to spend more time listening to what people actually really want, I think we would probably do a lot better in this environment. Absolutely. All right. Let's move on to our next question. Charlotte, may we have our next question, please?
You can, Nigel. This is a question from one of our panelists, Mark. And Mark asks, what are the most critical hard and soft skills for a change manager? And what are the best ways to develop them?
Well, most critical hard and soft skills for a change manager and how to develop them. Well, that's quite a lot indeed. So what I think we'll do here is we're going to start off, mix it up a little bit. We're going to start with Avishek and then move on to Sarah.
Thanks for that question. I'll focus on the hard skills part because we have just been speaking about some of the soft skills with the previous question. I think 2 or 3 things stand out for me. One of them is how do you manage business readiness as a whole? Because at the end of any change you're trying to manage, it's all about getting the business or whatever the context of that change is, getting them ready for the change, ensuring that they can still service internal and external stakeholders as well as they have been. So it's managing business readiness that comes as a key hard skill for me. And close on the heels of that would be facilitating change impact assessments, because that's what gives rise to all sorts of different change impacts and how do you manage them with the risks, etc. So those, for me, would be the 2 critical ones to develop skills in.
Makes sense. Absolutely. Thanks, Avishek. Sarah, what are your favorite soft and hard skills?
So again, I would just cover a couple. You may argue it's a soft skill, but actually I think it's a hard skill. And for me, it's don't forget you have a voice. We know that it's all about other people's voices, but it's so easy sometimes with the pressure to get your own voice. So have the courage. So I think courage is a hard skill. As a change manager, I ask you all to remember you have that. You have that intuition. That's why you're doing that role. So keep having your own voice. And it's going to be tough. You're going to walk away sometimes feeling everything against you. People might not agree, but stand by what you believe in. Have the courage to do it. And for development, have a good sounding board. Have people that you can lean upon when you're having those moments, just to kind of sense a check that it's okay to feel the way you are.
Yeah. That's a very good point, actually. Okay. Absolutely brilliant points there. Okay, let's have a chat. Ron, why don't you give us your thoughts before we hear from Melissa?
Yeah, hard skills and soft skills, they go together. Hard skills are all about data and the data that you need to inform your change management engagement process. So hard data, now you can get via AI, if you want, which I mentioned before. And the things you find out about your stakeholders, etc., helps you to engage with your stakeholders, in a way that they want you to. So your hard skills and your soft skills are really kind of one of the same, and one informs the other.
True. Very good point, actually. They are almost they're definitely very intertwined. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Okay, Melissa, what is your opinion?
Well, I'm going to give you a fairy answer, and that is the ability to see the things that are hidden, see the unsaid. And in order to do that, I would think that intuition is a really important skill. The soft skill is that niggly feeling that you have inside that says, people are saying it's okay, but it isn't really. And I, foresee some challenges coming up, or I understand what people are feeling and thinking. And I think, to develop your intuition, you've got to practice and you've got to listen to the heart.
Very good points. Practice, listen to the heart, develop your own intuition. All fantastic advice, definitely. Thanks. Mark, your final thoughts for this?
Yeah, I would probably continue what Melissa said, and it's making sure to remember to keep a safe space for the folks that you're working with, whether it's face-to-face in a meeting. But I think that helps, so kind of supports what Melissa was saying in terms of being sensitive to those around. But if you've got that safe space around, people know that they can walk in and feel comfortable to be heard.
Fantastic. I think that safe space is so important. It really is. And I think having a safe space also tends to mitigate the hippo effect, doesn't it? The hired paid person's opinion, which is always an influencing factor when you're in these meetings. And I think most of us have spent a lot of time trying our best to extract from people that have really good, meaningful input, but are just too afraid, okay, or feel intimidated. So they don't want to give that really great input. And I think that the companies are really losing out if they don't adopt and embrace that, that particular sort of aspect of things. Fantastic. I can see a lot of people are joining online, so welcome everybody. It's really great to have you online. Don't forget, pop your name and the place you're watching from in the chat and get your questions in early, because this hour goes really, really quickly. We usually end up with a flurry of questions being added at 10 minutes to the hour and we run out of time. So please do get your questions in. And with that, Charlotte, may we have our next question, please?
You may. I was going to call you Nick then. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I forgive you.
Another question from one of our viewers, Alona. Alona asks, is coaching or mentoring the most effective way to support the development of change manager?
Okay. I would expect to see everybody's hands up for this. And in fact, that is exactly what has happened. So we're going to mix things up a little bit here, I think. And we're going to start off with Mark and we'll move on to Melissa.
The answer is yes. You need both. You need coaching and you need mentoring. You need coaching for some of the hard skills. You need mentoring for both some of the hard skills and definitely for soft skills. So you need that whole person effect.
Yep, totally agree with you. You certainly do. Melissa, your thoughts?
So yes, I agree. I think, finding groups of people where you can get coached in a group and share stories, I think that's really important. And I've learned so much just from listening to other change managers. So if I had to rank between coaching and mentoring, I would actually rank mentoring as higher, and this is my opinion, just because stories really help inform my own understanding of change management, my understanding of different kinds of people in different organizations and different environments. So I would say mentoring first, then coaching, and to include communities of practice.
Definitely agree with you there. I think mentoring does come first, okay, in my opinion at least. Coaching is a secondary element of mentoring, but you're quite right. They're both critical in this. Thanks, Melissa. Avishek, what are your thoughts?
I would put mentoring head and shoulders above coaching in this regard. And the reason is a lot of how you wield the practice of change management is down to you as an individual. And I think if you're looking at coaching, you're probably going to take quite a bit of that individuality away with the coach's personality looking to tower over you. And that's not what we want with with developing as a change manager. So my vote definitely is with mentoring.
Now, that's a very good point, actually, if you think about that. Very, very good point. You do take a lot of the initial person's, should we say, thought process. They get altered, right, through coaching. They really do. And it can have an enormously heavy impact on how they approach stuff. So it becomes, in essence, cloning yourself here, when you're coaching quite often. And I think a good coach kind of avoids that, though, or tries to avoid that and tries to develop individuality. But now there's a real crossover between mentoring and coaching, right? That's where the coach becomes mentor. So thanks, Avishek. Really appreciate that. Sarah, your thoughts?
So, yeah, it's a really good question, and it can be effective, but it does go down to who the coach or mentor is, because let's be honest, there's some pretty poor ones around probably. And also I deliver change all the time, and we know a lot of the barriers, hate to say it, but is this effective sponsorship, is the leadership. Now, that's quite worrying to me if they're the people that are doing the coaching or mentoring, which is also why I've become the first accredited training provider to do the star manager and coach just on a, because I'm so passionate about that. So yes, coaching and mentoring is an effective way if it's the right coach or mentor, but you've got to invest in yourself. So actually you need to put yourself in situations where you can kind of observe, learn from, and think about how would you tackle that, and start to also develop yourself in different ways by perhaps attending training or forums like Melissa said.
Sarah, I agree with you. And have you also not seen this? I have in the past, where quite quickly the candidate or the person being mentored or coaching overtakes the coach or mentor in their skill set, okay? And I think that to be a coach or a mentor, it does require some fairly special personality traits. I think trainers do make pretty good coaches. That's for sure, because we kind of know how to discuss this stuff and deal with people. Yeah, we have to do this every day in a classroom. But here's a question for you. Do you think a trainer makes a good mentor?
Me personally, I think I would, and I do. But again, not all trainers, because I will be honest,
No?
I don't think all trainers are that brilliant either. I think, you get some great ones and others that perhaps are not so great.
That's also true. That's very, very true. Good point. Okay, Ron, finish us off on this if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm a little bit contentious. That I think coaching and mentoring is one way, but I think one of the things is, if you want to really become a good change manager, you need to help yourself. You don't need to necessarily go and get a coach or a mentor. And when I say you help yourself, I say do your own research. Look at what's happening in the change management world. Look at the different things that are coming to the fore, like, again, artificial intelligence, and learn for yourself. And your question earlier on, does a trainer make a good coach and mentor? Well, I train, obviously, but I train in a way that I coach and mentor during the training, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. So Ron, what you're saying is you're incorporating the coaching and mentoring element into the training element. So you're not just trying to impart the knowledge, which is really the training element. You're actually trying to grow the person's awareness, empathy, and understanding of how to do this stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you've heard it there, everybody. We have a great panel of trainers here. If you are looking to become a change manager and you want to learn how to do this stuff properly, talk to anybody on this panel, and I think you'll be in the right place. Yeah. Fantastic. Awesome. So just a quick shout out to our audience. Everybody, remember, don't forget, get your questions in early so that we can get through those as well, and give a shout out from where you're from and your name, and we can start getting you guys some information. All right, Charlotte, let's move along and take our next question.
We have had a live question submitted, Nigel, and this is from Susan in York in the UK. Would joining a change community help in developing my change skills? And if so, would you recommend any?
Wow. Okay. So here is an opportunity, folks, for you to answer all of this. There are lots of them. I think what we'll do is we'll start off, just to mix it up a bit. We'll go and start with Ron, and then we'll move to Avishek.
Oh, caught me out there then. Let's take LinkedIn as an example. There are about 50 change management groups called one thing or another. Yeah. The thing that's important is to join the community that has the best interaction, because there's many groups on LinkedIn that, people have joined. I'm a member of 48, but a lot of them don't actually do a lot. So look at those groups that actually, have activity with them. And it's a great way to ask questions, to answer questions and stuff like that. And, even if you want to create your own WhatsApp group with members of, different communities, etc. Yes, they are, because it's an opportunity to, ask some of the, how can I call them, more senior, well-versed change managers questions that you want.
Yeah, exactly. Ron, thanks. That is really good advice. Avishek, what are your thoughts?
I would start with APMG for sure. I think you guys put out some really good events, case in point being panel discussions. The second one I would definitely recommend is the Change Management Institute. I've personally been a member for about 4 years now, and they tend to discuss topics of varied natures. There was recently something on benefits management and how change practitioners come in there, which is an oft overlooked one. So I think I would definitely recommend Change Management Institute. The third one that I personally found quite useful is ProSci. And they put out webinars, again, quite regularly. Ron, you have talked at length on artificial intelligence, and there recently was a webinar from ProSci on this subject, and I found that really fascinating.
Fantastic. Thank you, Avishek. So there you go. I think there's quite a lot you can do, and I think it's unanimous. Everybody recommends that you do join some professional communities out there. CMI is a very good one. The ProSci one is there. LinkedIn is a great resource, but absolutely agree with Ron. Be careful which groups you place your importance on, because a lot of them are just inactive or they are immature and they don't have the relevant kind of, people in them. So just look around on LinkedIn and you'll find the ones that suit what your requirements are. And also, don't limit yourself just to change management is my advice, because there are multiple groups that cover multiple topics, and they are also active in change management, or very active. So a lot of the PM groups are covering CM, a lot of CM groups are covering PM. We've got agile change groups, we've got all sorts of different things around there. Start taking a look at the neuroscience stuff, because that's important as well. There are groups that are focusing on soft skills, which are very related to change management. Okay, how to develop your own empathetic skills, listening, interactions, dealing with people. So you'll find lots and lots of those groups around. So if you need advice or really want some direct recommendations, hook up with us. You'll find all of our profiles on LinkedIn. Okay, and in fact, if you go to the APMG events page, you will find all of us on there, and you are welcome to connect to us. Just don't try and sell us anything, please. It's not the way we do this. This is for advice, okay? And we're happy to support, mentor, and coach, but we're not going to buy anything if you don't mind. Yeah. So there we go. All right. Fantastic. Good answers, everybody. Thank you very much. Charlotte, may we move on? Take our next question, please.
Nigel, you may. We've got another live question from Isabella in Bournemouth. And it follows on from the other question about coaching and mentoring. What about certifications? Are these necessary? Which one would you recommend?
Interesting. Okay. Are they necessary, and what would you recommend? So I think Sarah and then Melissa, if you don't mind first.
Well, Isabella, I live in Poole, right next to you in Dorset. So if you want any training, then definitely look me up. But I do think they're really necessary. If we think about, what Nelson Mandela always said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And even if you've been doing it a really long time, which a lot of people have that come on my training, there's always some things that they learn, or it just gives them that time to take a step back, to reflect and to think about, taking stock of what they are doing and, refresh to think about moving forward. I do think they're very, very important, though, and not necessarily just for employment basis, but I think for all of us, it's good to have that learning opportunity and to receive that certification at the end of it. So, yes, I do think they're important. I would recommend, obviously, the APMG change management, facilitation, the stakeholder. So there's quite a lot there within that I would definitely recommend. I'll pass on to somebody else.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much, Sarah. All good recommendations for sure. Melissa, what are your thoughts?
I share Sarah's sentiments on the APMG. I found that particular change management certification to be extremely comprehensive and useful. And then I would add on neuroscience as a certification just to keep abreast with what's happening. And then, when it comes down to the way in which change management is applied and the different environments, then getting upskilled onto the different project management styles, as an example, agile, that I think is important, because when it comes to recruiting, some companies would look at the particular environment that they're in and making sure that the change manager can fit in to the type of project management styles that's being used or methodologies that's being used. So I'd add those ones on. And then from a theory perspective, I would add on, a little bit more of the creativity, innovation, and, not necessarily a certification, but adding on the skill. And you might have to get a certification in order to showcase that particular skill.
Yeah, I think that that's absolutely correct. Thank you, Melissa. Very, very, very interesting thought process there. I love the way that you've diversified that slightly. Really good. Okay, Avishek, what are your thoughts?
In terms of whether certifications are necessary, absolutely, and for two key reasons. One is, as you are looking to develop as a change manager, you would only be able to amass only so much experience within a span of time. And if you need to accelerate your development, you would need a solid grounding of the theory and the theoretical aspects underpinning all of the change work. So that's one respect in which certifications become quite important. The second key thing for me is it signals quite powerfully to prospective employers or clients that you do take what you are doing quite seriously and you're committed to developing yourself. Now, in terms of certifications, I would recommend, I know we've been speaking about agile ones, project and program management ones, but if I look at pure change management certifications, I would absolutely second Melissa. The APMG one is a real good one in my view, and the ProSci one as well. So they would be my top two. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Avishek. Ron, your diverse opinion, please.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether I want to answer this question now. Are these necessary? Well, if you want them to adorn your office wall or your desk, yeah, of course they're necessary. But I don't think they're completely necessary in terms of becoming a change manager. I've got to come clean. I have never been trained. I do not have any certificates, but I believe I'm a good change manager, and I believe I train good change management. So these things kind of tell me that certifications are not necessary, but they are the first rung of the ladder. Okay, they'll teach you some of the things you need to know about change management, but they won't make you a change manager. In fact, the person I finished training today asked me a question, and she said, "Am I now a change manager?" I said, "No." I said, "No, you're not." So, having gone through all that, which one would I recommend? I'm not going to answer that.
It's a difficult one. So, Ron, I hear you. I do, and I think that's one of the important things that we've got to bear in mind here is that you and many others on this panel, have maybe started off your career in a different space and have grown into, the whole thing, right? Okay. Yeah. So we've grown into it over decades, and we've put together enormous amounts of experience. Okay. And that experience is invaluable. If you were to recommend to somebody who was starting out today as a young change manager who wanted to get into change management, I think my answer would be absolutely, it is critical to get yourself some certifications, because as Avishek rightly said a couple of minutes ago, you don't amass that experience in 2, 3, or 4 years, right? You absolutely cannot. This experience that we're talking about is decades long of lifelong learning. So how do you fast track that? How do you learn those underpinning principles? How do you get skills that you would never even be exposed to in the real working world in a rapid way? Well, you get them by doing training, right? So you get as much as you can knowledge-wise in training, and then you can apply that information in practical real-world examples. Okay, when you get the opportunity. So I think that there's another element to this, and it's a sad fact, but whether it's right or wrong is immaterial. It's reality. That is, when a person is out there and they're looking for a job, the fact that they've just attended change management training that isn't certified or it doesn't carry a recognizable credential, it may, no, and I'm not taking away for 1 millisecond the value of that training because it is enormous, okay? It's not necessarily going to give them the opportunity to get a job when they're put side by side with those candidates that do hold those internationally recognized certifications. That's where the big challenge comes in. So I think, Mark, you had your hand up briefly. I'm not sure if you wanted to chip in panel here.
No, I think you just encapsulated. I was kind of put the warning out there. I see a lot in project management certification, this automatic, oh, I've got my certification, so I can go out and make 6 figures US for a position.
Nope.
And I have to work with my mentees on resetting that expectation. I think I would use the word training versus certification in terms of required. I think that supports what Ron was saying. But overall, I go back to what you said, Nigel, is at this point, if you have the chance to go through a program and get certified, it's going to do you well, right?
Yeah.
I went through GE CAP a long time ago because GE CAP doesn't even exist anymore. But it is still foundational. It is still found in the current methodologies and such. So it was important to have that, and now it's time to move on.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. And just before I come back to you, because this is an interesting debate. If you look back in time, 8 years ago, if you were applying for a job as a change manager, it was rare, okay, incredibly rare, because that role in its standalone role didn't exist, literally. Okay, very, very seldom. Maybe in very, very large organizations did they have that. Okay, it was always a side role. Okay, or something you were expected to do as part of your normal daily job. That has all changed now. And if you look at it, if you look at the number of people that are advertising change management jobs now around the world, I think in North America, it's grown by something ridiculous. It's like a couple of 1,000% in 3 years. Okay, for pure dedicated change managers that are looking for jobs. Okay, so interesting that. Ron, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just one of the things to add, and you've mentioned things like the advertising and the recruitment, et cetera, et cetera. I personally think that this certification issue is recruiter driven. Yeah. So the recruiter makes life easy for themselves by saying you must have X or you must have Y or you must have Z, because then they can say anyone without those, we can forget them, and there's only, say, 10 applicants with those specific attributes we want, the certification we want, and which is a little bit disconcerting.
Yeah, I get what you're trying to say. I'm not sure that I agree, though, because I think that there are lots of people who, recruiters that do that. Okay, and if you look at it, the normal sort of degrees, okay, are very much the same, right? So you don't get your foot in the door unless you you have a BA or a BSc or whatever it might be, a university or college degree. Meanwhile, there are people who are absolutely as qualified, that don't hold those, that have more relevant experience. Absolutely the case. Totally agree there. But I think when we're talking about something like a very specific knowledge path like this, I'm not really sure that that's the case. I think that if you look at it as a recruiter, would I want to employ the person who has no change management qualification? And let's assume they both had the same level of experience. Let's assume they've got 5 years each, right? I'd take the one that has the qualification and the 5 years rather than the one that's just got the 5 years.
I disagree.
Sarah, your thoughts?
Just really quickly, I was going to say, it just reminds me of that good old proverb: you can lead a horse to water, but it doesn't mean that they will drink. So I like to think that recruitment or not recruitment, people will have the sense to pick to know and to be able to pick those people that can back it up. But I am a believer, like Ron, I do think experience amounts for a lot, because I'm not particularly academic myself, and everybody that comes on my training knows that. So
Totally agree. Totally agree. Well, I think, panel, we have had some really interesting discussion and diverse views on this one. Okay, this is really good. We like this on this show, and that's why we have lots of different diverse personalities on the show. And hopefully, we give you, the audience, a complete, holistic picture of the pros and cons of having or not having, certification and so on. Right. Thank you all for your answers. Really interesting. I think it's time to move on, though, because time is running a bit short. Charlotte, may we have our next question, please?
Nigel, you may, and this may be another diverse question.
Oh, no.
Question
Okay.
from Ron.
Yes.
With ageism being rife in business, how do you convince potential employers, if you're of a certain age, you can still cut it in today's non-stop world of change?
Wow. So this is a very, very interesting question. And Ron, I know you're going to put your hand up and I'm going to come to you last, because I actually do want to hear everybody's perspective on this. This is a challenge. Honestly, everybody, this is a challenge. Not for you young folks on the panel, of course, like Sarah and Melissa and so on, But yeah, for folks like my age, it's a real worry. Okay, so what I'm going to do, if you don't mind, ladies first. So Melissa, let's start with you, then we'll hear from Sarah.
Thanks, Nigel. So from my perspective, I've had this question asked to me a lot when it comes to career planning and when I run career planning sessions. And this goes, besides change management, it's across the board, and it's a general problem that we have in society today. And I would, I always say to people, it's about who you know in terms of networking and engaging with people, because when you start networking and talking to people, you then start understanding what is the key experience required, and then honing in your CV or honing in your experience to showcase that particular thing. And when I say showcase, I then, would like to draw reference to your brand and building your brand and making sure that information is out there so that people can see it for themselves without now having to sort of question. When you look at hiring somebody to build a pool, what do? You go look at their pictures of what can they do. And if it looks like a really grand pool, then you're like, that's the one I want. And I know you can deliver that to me. So I would say brand and networking would be top of mind for me.
Very good point. I'm not sure that the building the pool analogy is so useful for Europe, but nevertheless, down here in South Africa, we certainly would do it that way. Absolutely agree with you. No, thanks, Melissa. That's really, really great input. Sarah, what are your thoughts?
Oh, this is really interesting. I love the fact that you always put me with the young, I've been working in leadership and change for about 25 years. So I always find it really amusing. But I just want to kind of spin it on its head, because I appreciate, Ron, you asked this question. But I think there's a lot of people out there that will be feeling actually they might have a barrier because they're too young, because they're perhaps in the middle of their lives, and people will know that perhaps they're thinking about families or something. And I don't think it's anything new, because actually my early career I was an area manager in banking for quite a long time, and I remember actually I was young to be an area manager, and it was perceived that look at these young hotshots coming in, because a lot of the people were a lot more senior. But actually it didn't matter, because we all complemented each other. We all had different kind of things to bring. So I kind of say, are you actually putting a blocker in yourself? Because a bit like, Melissa was alluding to, it's on an individual basis. And you will have some people that are older that still have so much to give, the same as some people that are younger or kind of in the middle, but it's very much based on, that individual. So kind of think about actually, taking away your own kind of barriers, and think about actually, what can I bring to the party?
Yeah, very good points, Sarah. Very good points. Mark, your thoughts?
Yeah, a couple things. First, I want to sort of mimic a little bit of what Sarah said. I was always the young one in the room, and then all of a sudden one day I was the old one in the room, and I don't know exactly when that happened.
Nope.
But yeah, it's especially if you're someone who has some kind of imposter syndrome. It's being able to, and I'll go back to the self-awareness I talked about earlier. Are you able to demonstrate? Are you able to project out that level of both competence and confidence out, right? And going back to what Melissa said in terms of branding and networking, it really comes down to a personal relationship, right? So are we talking being taken seriously on a piece of paper on your CV, or are we talking about actually being taken seriously when you're actually in that interview, or when you're being asked to work with a group? How do you make sure that they feel comfortable with you?
Yeah. I think that those are both valid points. I'll come back in after we've heard from the others. So, Avishek, what are your thoughts?
I will have to engage in a bit of crystal ball gazing here, because I don't think I'm still that age yet, but I will soon be. Two things for me that stand out. The first one is, if you have been working, to the best of your abilities, if there haven't been significant gaps in your work record, and I know that's probably a lot easier said than done, but if you have been able to do that continually or continuously, I think it makes things a lot simpler, because then potential employers know that you still have it in you, and they can see recent examples of that. The other thing, which I agree with the others on the panel who have gone before, you need to be able to seen as contributing to the profession in some manner, and that could mean blog posts, it could mean engaging in conversations on the right communities, it could mean hosting webinars, it could mean a number of different things. But if you kept doing that, and even if you are not employed at a particular point in time, there's nothing stopping you from doing any of that. So I think the two of them, if they can happen in tandem, that's probably your best shot.
Makes sense, Avishek. Thanks for that. Ron, you raised the question. What recommendation and advice do you have?
The first thing I'll say is actually getting over the hurdle of getting into an interview. First of all, because, if you've got your date of birth on your CV, the likelihood is, if there is an ageism policy, in inverted commas, you won't get an interview. But let's say you got the interview. I think the thing is to demonstrate that there is nothing new today. There is nothing really new today. Everything today has been done, thought about, or implemented before, regardless of at what level it was. So if you can demonstrate that you've been through these various hoops and whatever you want to call them, and the fact that you can sort of align what you have done with what happens today, then I think you're probably most of the way there. So, whilst we've got a world of non-stop change, like I said, I don't think there's anything new. You can always look at something you did before and say, well, that's similar to what you want me to do now. Yeah. And I've been there and I've done it. I've got the T-shirt. Thank you very much.
Good points, Ron. Good points. So, I think just to add to what Ron is saying here, and I agree with that, but one of the things I think that you should do is take a look at the type of company that you really want to work for. Okay, because certain companies will most definitely approach ageism very differently to others. Okay, and I think that as long as you are able to identify the type of company that you do not want to work for, put it that way, okay, and try to pick out the ones that would recognize your experience, okay, and what you can bring to the table, you will not have a problem getting that job. Okay. I think the other challenge we have is people's expectations are often unrealistic in terms of your desired remuneration. Okay, so if typically a younger person would expect to earn a little bit less when they're starting out in the industry, and a lot of employers will say, I can afford that, and I will teach these people, this person, what it is that I need them to know. Whereas the older folks coming in for the interview expect to come out with a massive 6-figure salary or 7-figure salary, and that becomes a bit of a challenge, right? So they put themselves outside of the employment bracket that is being advertised for that job. Now, if you're prepared to accept the employment, the remuneration within that, then no problem at all. But the other thing is, what I see in the industry is that a lot of folks who are slightly older tend to become entrepreneurial. okay, as they get older, more and more. So they start to do their own thing. They start to act as a consultant. They don't want to work full time. Okay, they don't want to be the one that goes to work 8 to 5, and do all that stuff that is the daily grind anymore. They start a coaching company. They start a mentoring company. Start a training company, right? And I think we've got a couple of folks on this panel who do exactly this very, very successfully, I might add. Okay, so yeah, Ron, your thoughts?
Yeah, very, very quickly. I think there's an issue of culture as well, because in the West. Yeah, ageism, yes, is rife. Here in Asia, if you've got grey hair, yeah, if you've got a grey beard, you are more recognized as a skilled, knowledgeable, whatever kind of person. So people take notice of you more. I mean, when I moved here to Thailand in 2011, sorry, I was 61. I got my first contract here at 63. And I worked through to 2019, which was where I was 69, when I got my last contract. So it's different culture. It's a culture issue as well.
There it is, absolutely. And it does explain why you dye your hair, though, now. Now we know, Ron. Absolutely.
It's totally natural.
It's totally natural. Fantastic. But sadly, we are actually running out of time. So I think we're going to have to take our last question, QM. Charlotte, may we have our final question, please?
You may. And we've got a brilliant question here for us all to finish on. It's from Susan in York. And Susan in York asks, why did the panel become a change manager and what do they love about it the most?
Wow. Okay. You know what? That could probably keep us talking all day. Okay. So I think, let's just walk around the panel here. I think just about everybody has their hand up. I think let's start with the ladies here. So Melissa, then Sarah, and then we will move on.
For me, it was understanding that people needed support. I saw HR sitting as supporters, but outside of business. And then I saw operations and they needed to make sure people got things done. And it was, carrot and stick approach. And for me, I thought that there's a gap and people need support in order to help them move to the next level or move to the change process. And so that was, for me, something that I felt I could match in terms of my skills and experience, and that's why I moved.
Fantastic. And what's the fairy answer, though, for this?
The fairy answer is that it lights me up, and it is one of the ways I can share my love and light within me to everybody around. And it is a way in which I can engage with people energetically.
Fantastic. I love it. Okay. Sarah, your thoughts?
So going back to the whole experience versus certification thing, I fell into it really because I had this core intuitive ability to be really fed up looking at people being treated badly. It just used to, honestly, I couldn't stand by and watch it happen because I've always had a voice and been very passionate about how people are feeling and being made to feel. And having that, I thought, well, actually, all of these things that are happening around me, it doesn't matter what environment I was in from a business perspective, it can be done a lot better. And it can work using, the right approach, common sense, and actually being good human beings. So that's why I very much became a change manager, because I always want to make a difference. And I'm very, like I say, that's what I always kind of strive to do. And that's what I love most about it. If I can make, people's lives that little bit better, and not have to go through some of the ways that, they've been through it before, because it's just not necessary, then that's what keeps me, moving forward.
Fantastic. Very, very good. Ron, your thoughts briefly?
Yeah, I was a project manager, fellow of the Association of Project Management. Wash my mouth out with soap. And I found that projects I was working on was all about people. It was all about changing the way people worked, persuading them to do their job differently and so forth. And I thought, well, wait a minute. That's not project management. Project management, a little bit, you need a few hard, deliver things and stuff like that, rather than change people's mindsets and behaviors and stuff like that. And so it was during the period when change management started coming to the fore. And I thought, I don't want to be a project manager anymore. I want to become a change manager. So I just started calling myself a change manager.
Okay.
Just like that.
And there you are.
I'm a change manager. There you go. What do I love about it? What do I love about it most? Being a change manager.
There you go.
Seriously. Now that I'm a trainer, what I love is imparting my wisdom and my knowledge that I've picked up over 50 years in the business.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Avishek, briefly.
Well, I never intended to be a change manager. And much like Sarah, I think I was thrust into it. When I did see change management being wielded the first time around, I thought it was probably not much better than snake oil being peddled. Now, in my first role and in the roles I've had subsequently, there's two things that stood out for me where I've seen myself being able to make a real difference. The first is that the sort of conversations, the heart-to-heart conversations you can have with the business, with your stakeholders, that's an incredible opportunity to influence and shape people's opinions. And the second thing that I've seen is the cross-functional leadership, where you bring different functions together, different work streams together, and help surface blind spots. I think that, to me, adds a lot of value.
Fantastic. Thank you very, very much. All right. So Mark has opted to skip because we are running very short on time. So I think, panel, what we're going to do is just going to walk around everybody and just get your final closing remarks. Okay. Mark, I think we'll begin with you today. Just give us a couple of closing comments, if you don't mind.
Well, I really appreciated the great conversation. And I've been someone who's been watching these panels for some time, and I love Robert Snyder and his ability to throw a quote out. So I'll end with a quote. Progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. And that was George Bernard Shaw.
Fantastic. Mark, thank you very much. Ron, very briefly.
Very briefly, okay. Change management is a great profession. It's just a pity we're so fragmented.
It's true, though. It is very true. But fantastic thought. Thank you. Avishek.
What I have seen is most people, even today, haven't got the foggiest idea what change management is all about. So I think the biggest challenge as a change manager is to be able to relate things that you do to everyday terms that almost makes intuitive sense to the people you are doing it with. And while doing that, still delivering the intended outcomes. I think that, to me, is the biggest challenge that the change management community as a whole got to be able to address.
Yeah, that's absolutely a very valid point. Melissa?
Well, I'll leave with a little advice to each person that wants to develop as a change manager, and it is the power of the pause. Because you know what it is that you need to do. You have it within you to be great, and you know all of the little things that you would need to develop or focus on, read about. There are many ways to develop, and I would just say to everybody, take some time out, do some introspection, and then shine.
Then shine. Absolutely. Thanks, Melissa. Sarah, your thoughts?
Yeah, a little bit like Melissa. I was just going to say these hours fly by. It's unbelievable. But if you want to know more on how to develop, please reach out, get in touch. And all of us on the panel would be more than happy to help. I'm absolutely sure.
Yeah, wonderful. I just want to echo that as well. Absolutely. Reach out, connect us on LinkedIn. Charlotte, your thoughts on today's episode?
It's been a super fast episode with some amazing questions. One quote that I'd like to share, I've shared it before, is from Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future. If you set your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. Change is all around us, and it doesn't have to be a massive project that you're implementing to be classed as change. We all experience change the whole way through our life, and change is forever.
Absolutely, changes forever. You're absolutely right. So I just wanted to say we're running out of time. So on behalf of APMG and everybody watching, thank you so much for getting all those questions in. Without your questions, we don't have a show. So keep watching, keep putting those questions in. Thank you so much. And to our panelists who once again have excelled and delivered phenomenal answers to everybody, thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right. Over on our website, you can search for the answers to over 2,200 questions now. It's a really phenomenally great free resource. It connects you with experts from around the world. Don't forget, you can also listen to the audio versions of the shows on your preferred podcast platform. So coming up next week, Monday, the 8th of April, we're going to be revisiting another very popular topic, which is how to engage stakeholders in 2024. Remember, that's at 8 a.m. BST. Friday the 12th, 2 p.m. EST, we're going to be looking at how to build your project management career. And before we go into how to achieve an agile mindset the following Monday. Don't forget to head over to our YouTube channel, give this video a like, and subscribe to our APMG YouTube channel. Please do. It doesn't cost you anything, but it really does help other people discover the content. Just ask, we'll send you a personal summary of what's coming up and how you too can join us here on the panel and level up your career with APMG. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.